The paperless office, it's a really cool idea. It basically involves digitizing everything so that you never need paper. That was one of the great ideas thrown around years and years ago. So by now, all of you listening to this video should no longer have any paper lying around at all. Oh well, welcome to the real world where marketing gets ahead of technology and paper usage is probably higher today than when the paperless office idea came about. But still, print devices have gotten much more eco-friendly at least, so the industry as a whole has had some wins in that area. And while I'm on the subject of print devices though, before we even really get into seeing how to install a printer on Windows Server 2008, it's important to understand there is a difference between printers and print devices. Now when Microsoft refer to a printer, they're really talking about software, or in other words, they're talking about the print driver. When talking about the physical printer, that's the box that sits in the corner that always seems to have no paper in it when you want to print something, well, Microsoft refer to that as your print device. So a print device is really a printer, and a printer is really a driver. So with those definitions in mind, there are two types of printers. We have a locally attached printer and a network printer. Now a local printer, this is the type that you plug directly into your server. You'd normally use something like a USB, and trust me when I say that is an accurate drawing of a printer right there. So again, these local printers, they're going to normally be connected using USB or even an old parallel cable, although of course USB is most likely to be the type of connection you'll have. Now on the other hand, we also have a network connected printer, and these printers are connected to the network itself. Now it could be connected via a wireless connection, or a printer that's directly plugged into a hub or a switch, and it will contain a print server that can communicate over the network using TCP/IP. Now, an example of this type of printer would be an HP printer that's got a Jet Direct card, which is basically just its own network card. So it's going to plug straight into a hub or a switch. You can allocate it as static IP or use DHCP to get an address, and you'll communicate with these network printers, obviously, over the network. Now, for every physical printer that you have on a Windows server, it'll be represented in Windows as a logical printer. Now, a logical printer is what defines the characteristics of the printer itself. Things like the driver, the printer settings, and other properties that control how your server will communicate with the physical print device. Now, to be able to add a printer to your server, first of all, you must either be a member of the administrators group, the power users group, the print operators, or the server operators groups, and anything less, you'll be denied the ability to add a printer to your server. Now obviously in this video we could go through the process of adding local printers to a Windows 2008 server, but in reality you're probably not going to be doing that. You'll be using network printers, and to be blunt, if you're not at the level to be able to add a local USB printer to a Windows server or a workstation, then in all honesty you're probably not at the level required to be operating and managing a Windows server anyway. So we are going to skip all of that terribly simple stuff, but if you do want a primer on that, you could pick up our Windows 2003 videos on printers or our Windows Vista videos on printers, and we do cover all of that stuff there. So in this video though, we're going to talk about the stuff that you need to know in the real world, the new stuff, the cool stuff that Windows 2008 brings along with it. So let's get going. Now if you'd worked a lot with printers on Windows Server 2003, then you might know about a feature called printer location tracking. Now this was simply a group policy based object that was designed to assign printers to people in your domain based on the location they were in. So what it would do is it would look at your Active Directory sites and determine the printers that were close to you And when you tried to look for a printer to connect to, it would then tell you about those printers that were in your local area. Now, it was a pretty cool idea, and for the most part it worked well. But in Windows 2008 we've got something even better. So it's very likely that you're going to see printer location tracking being replaced. Although I must admit, it didn't seem to have a high implementation percentage, not at least in the companies that I've worked with. So the first thing we're going to do in this video is install the Print Services role. So to do that, we'll come down to the bottom left here, we'll fire up the Server Manager console. We're going to select Roles, and over here on the right we'll click Add Roles. Now this is going to fire up the Add Roles wizard, which we've all seen before, so we'll need to come over here and add in the Print Services role. We'll place a check there, we'll click Next. We'll get a little bit of introductory information about the Print Services role, which we expect by now. Now you can read this if you like, I'm not going to go through it. You can do that in your own time if you like. We'll just click Next. Now, in addition to the print services, we can also install the LPD or line printer daemon, and this will allow our Unix and Linux hosts to be able to print to our printers. So if you do have those machines in your network, you probably might have a couple of them lying around, of course. You can check this box here. Now also for internet printing, that's not a new thing. It's been around since Windows 2000, but for this video, we're going to concentrate only on all of the new cool features of printing in Windows 2008. So let's just select the first option, the print server. And if you do want to take a look at internet printing, we do cover that in our Windows 2003 videos. So down the bottom, we'll click Next, and then we'll click Install. Now this will take a few minutes to install everything, so as normal we're going to pause the video here and we'll come back once everything's ready to go. Okay, we're back. Our print services has been installed. We can ignore this message here about Windows automatic updating. We'll click Close. Now we'll close this. We don't need that. We'll go and click on Start. We'll go to our administrative tools and we'll now fire up our new print management console. Okay, well, we've got this new cool console here, but I will stress this. You can manage your printers just fine without ever having to install this role on any of your servers. You could just open up the printers folder in the control panel and you could add local or network printers to this server, start sharing them out to your users. You never have to touch this console at all. So if that's the case, why would you even want to install this role? Well, let's go and take a look at this console and we'll soon see why. Now up the top here, we've got a few sections here. We've got a custom filters section. Underneath we have a print server section and deployed printers. Now under this custom filters section in here, you'll see all of the printers that we've got available, all of the print drivers that we have installed, any printers that aren't ready to print for some reason, for example those could be printers that are offline, and we've also got an option here to view any printers that currently have jobs. Now if none of these particular categories here take your fancy, you could right click on custom filters and you could choose to create your own by clicking Add New Printer Filter. Now this will start up a new wizard, so let's just test this out. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call mine, let's call it LA Printers. Now I'm not going to worry about filling in a description here. Certainly in a production environment I would rethink that and enter some information. And down the bottom here, if you're expecting that you might get a lot of printers using this filters, you might want to check this box, and that's going to display the number of printers. Like we can see, if I just move this window over here, you can see in brackets we've got this number 3. So that's exactly what we're talking about. So let's check that box. We'll click Next. And now here we can define our printer filter. So we've got 3 columns that we need to consider. In the first one, we'll need to define what field will form the criteria for our filter. So are we going to look for printers according to their name, the status of their print queues? What about if there's jobs in the queue? The name of the server that the printers are connected to, any comments, drivers, if the printer is shared, and so forth. So I'm going to choose location here, and that's going to open up these next 2 fields. So we'll need to define a condition field where we're further able to then narrow down the results of our filter. So for our location, if the location is, say, exactly whatever we put here in the value field, then it would match. But my preference when I fill these in is personally not to fill in the middle column first. I like to fill in the value first. So I would say, in this example, let's just say LA. So back to our middle column here. If the location for our printer is exactly LA, then it would match. But we could also match on if it's not exactly LA. So if the value was East LA, that would match. We could also choose to see if it begins with the value LA, or perhaps does it just contain the word LA. Now we can say whatever we like. I'll leave it at contains there, but it just depends on how you want your naming convention to work with this filter. So that'll determine whatever you select here. Now we can add in more filters if we like as well. We're not limited to a single one. I'm happy with this line though. We'll use that for our example, filtering on any printer location that happens to contain the text LA. So we'll click next. We can choose to send an email notification to someone or run a script when our filter finds a printer. Now that's pretty standard stuff really. I'm not going to bother with that. We really don't need to be notified of a new printer, but these options are there if you need it. We'll just click Finish. Alright, well up here you can see our LA printers filter, which of course is showing 0 at the moment, since I don't actually have a printer with a location of LA defined, but that's easily fixed. We'll just go and select all printers here. Now in the right hand side, let's just move this window over a little bit. Let's just choose our Microsoft XPS document writer printer. We'll right click, we'll choose Properties. Now here in the location field, I'm just going to enter in LA and we'll click OK. Now let's go and refresh our screen here, and you can see that our LA printers filter has now picked up that change. Our LA printers filter is correctly displaying a 1, and inside you can see the printer in there. Alright, well let's move on. Let's move down here to our print servers section. If we select that, and right now you can see I've only got one single print server, but like with many of these other Microsoft consoles, if we right click here on print servers, we can choose to add additional servers to this console, and then we're able to manage multiple servers at the same time from this one central location. And that's rather nice for those of us that happen to be printer administrators. So if we expand here our existing print server DC01, we can view all of the print drivers that are on this system right now, all of the forms, the ports, and of course printers. So all of these print devices and forms and drivers and so forth all belong to this print server, all available to view and manipulate in one central place. And really, this is what the print services role is all about. It's tying together all of those various components, and it's bringing them all under this one central console. And that really brings us back to the point I made earlier. Do you need this print services role to be able to add a printer to this server and manage it? No, you don't. Absolutely not. But for those of you that manage printers on a daily basis, and especially if you've got a really large company, you might have administrators that their job is to pretty much only ever look after printers. If that's the case, you're going to love this console. So would I use it in place of the traditional way of managing printers? For sure I would. But you don't have to. It's simply your choice. Now we can even add printers using this console, but before we add a printer to our server, firstly, I'm going to quickly show you the old-fashioned way to do it. But before we do that, we'll go and click Start, because I like to add printers here to the Start menu. Call me crazy, but I just like having it there. So we're going to right-click here, we'll choose Properties, we'll click Customize, we'll go pretty much down to the bottom, we'll add printers there, we'll click OK, and OK again. So now, to add a printer, we just need to click Start and choose Printers. And as you can see here inside this window, I've got no real printers defined. I've got this XPS document writer, which is sort of an XML equivalent to a PDF. And since I've got no real printers on this machine yet, obviously these are our default printers. You can see I've also got a redirected one because I'm connected via remote desktop. So to add a new printer here, we can double click on Add Printer, or we can click the button up here in the toolbar, or we could right click, we could choose to add a printer. Any of these three are going to start up the Add Printer wizard. Alright, so let's close this. Everyone should know how to do that by now. Let's go back to our print management console, and we'll need to make sure that we have printers selected, and we'll right click, we'll choose Add Printer. Now this is going to start up the Add Printer wizard, or the Add Network Printer wizard, and we can search for our network printers here. We're using this wizard. We could add one by an IP address or a host name if we happen to know it. We can add a printer using a port, an existing port, or we could create a new port and add a new printer that way. Now, in most cases, you're going to use one of the first two options here to either search and add a printer, or most likely you already know the host name and the IP address, and you'll use that method. So let's go with the default, the second option here. We'll click Next. Now we'll need to enter in the host name or the IP address of this printer. Now, since I don't actually have a printer attached to my server in my lab here, I'm going to choose a TCP IP device, and I'm going to enter in a bogus IP address. So let's just go with 10.32.0.167. I'm pretty sure that won't be in use. I'm going to uncheck this box here to automatically detect the printer because obviously it doesn't exist. We'll click Next. All right, well now we can choose what type of device we're connecting to, and you can see that it defaults to a generic network card, but in many cases you'll probably be dealing with a brand name network interface, much like an HP JetDirect card, for example. So let's just choose that. We'll choose a JetDirect one. We'll click Next. Now, since we don't have a real physical printer at this IP address, obviously it's unable to identify the device, which is rather logical. It doesn't exist after all. So we're now prompted to choose a driver. Now we've got three options here, although in all honesty, in my situation, we've really only got the one choice. At the top, we could use an existing driver, one that this wizard has determined already. That would be a good choice. But since I don't have any drivers on this machine right now, obviously that option here is grayed out. Now we could choose to use an existing driver that I do have installed on my system, but since I've only got the XPS document writer here, well, that's not really any good for me. So like I said, the only real choice here is our third option, and that's to install a new driver. So we're going to choose that. We'll click Next. And we've all probably seen this before. We'll use this window here to locate a new printer driver, or we could click the Have Disk button, and we could locate one that we might have already downloaded ourselves or been given a disk from our vendor for. In fact, if this was a production machine, I'd pretty much always do that. Ignore all of the pre-supplied drivers here and just download the latest one from the vendor. However, for the purposes of this video, we don't need to do that. Let's just select a driver from the list. So I'm going to choose an HP printer here, and let's just choose the top one, a 2500C series printer. That's fine. We'll click Next. We'll need to give this printer a name. I'm happy with the default. I'll leave it as it is. You can see here the default is to share this printer as well, and that's most likely what you're going to choose as well. But for the share name, I'm going to change this. Let's change it to, say, 2500-, say, art, for the art department. And for the location, I'm going to type in LA. Now I'll leave the comments field blank here. We'll click Next. We'll get our summary. That's fine. We'll click Next. And the driver will be installed. And our printer will be created. All right, it was successful. So I'm going to ignore these two options here to create another printer and print a test page. We'll click Finish. And you can see here our LA printers filter automatically now shows two printers. All right, well, so far we've seen how to add a printer to our server that's running this print services role. But how can we configure it so that our client machines, the users, can connect to this printer? Well, actually, that's the easy bit. So let's just right-click on our new printer here. And the very first thing I want to point out is this option up near the top here, List in Directory. The directory, of course, is Active Directory, and if we choose this option, it simply means that when users search for a printer, they'll be able to find this printer in Active Directory, which of course makes it easier to find it. Now we can also include this printer in Active Directory from the Properties window as well. So at the bottom, or near to the bottom, if we choose Properties, then we choose Sharing, you'll see that we've also got an option here to list it in the directory as well. All right, so let's click OK. And now, when users attempt to search for a printer, they're going to find this 2500 series HP listed in Active Directory. But even better than that is the ability to deploy this printer using group policy. So let's right-click on this printer again. And in fact, you'll note that we've got an option here to remove it from the directory if you so desire. The option we're looking for, though, is to deploy with group policy. So let's choose that. You can see here that the printer that we're going to deploy is this one, our 2500 series HP printer on this server, DC01. So we'll click the Browse button here, and we'll need to associate this with a group policy object. Now in my lab though, I only have the default domain policy here, and that's fine, that's what we'll use. But in a production environment, you might prefer to deploy this using a site level policy or some other group policy. Although I will actually point out that over here up on the right hand side, even though these buttons here don't seem to have rendered properly, the middle one here allows us to create a new GPO, so that could also work. Anyway, we'll select our default domain policy, we'll click OK. We can now apply this policy to users or computers or both. So let's go with computers. We'll click the Add button and then we'll click OK. Right, we can see our deployment was successful, so we'll click OK again. Now, since we chose to deploy this to a machine-targeted policy, a computer account, obviously this isn't going to take effect until we restart our workstation. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So let's try it out. Let's try and connect to another machine. I've got a Windows Vista machine on this domain. So let's remote desktop to it. We'll click Start, All Programs, Accessories, Remote Desktop Connection. And the IP address for this machine is 10.32.0.40 if I'm not mistaken. We'll try that. And in fact, we'll go to click the Options button first. We'll go to the Local Resources tab, and I'm going to uncheck Printers. That way I don't actually bring any of our printers from this server to the remote session. That way we'll only get to see whatever printers this Vista machine has naturally. So let's click Connect. Alright, we'll need to log in, so let's log in to the domain and we'll enter in a password. If I got it right, we should be... Okay, here we go, able to connect, that's great. Alright, now let's go and click Start on this Vista machine. We'll open up the control panel. We'll select Printer. And you'll note that we've got two printers. Well, we have three options in here. We've got a fax, which is standard. We've got the default Microsoft XPS document writer, but notice that we have this other printer here, the HP 2500C series that was on our server there, DC01. It's been automatically assigned to this Vista machine as a result of group policy. And that's just how easy it is to hook up a printer to this Vista workstation. We didn't have to search for it. We didn't have to manually add it. In fact, as a user, we did nothing. We simply pushed the power button on our computer, and when we loaded up in the morning, it just miraculously appeared thanks to those system administrator guys and their nifty group policy gizmos. Now that's a much better way of doing things, I think, much better than the old ways. So good on Microsoft for introducing this type of feature to Windows 2008. It's really that simple. So let's just minimize this and go back to our print management console here. Because the final thing I want to point out before the video credits start rolling is that in our print management console here, right at the very top, if we right click on print management, you'll note here that we're able to migrate printers from this print server to another one, or from another print server to this one. So let's select that, migrate printers, and this will bring up a small wizard where we can export our printer queues, our printer ports, and drivers. We can export all that to a file, or of course we can import them. So obviously, if we wanted to decommission this server, for example, and port all of the printers over to a new one, we'd choose Export here. And if we're bringing another print server over to this one, we'd choose Import. So let's choose Export. We'll click Next. And we can export this print server to this print server, or we could export it to another one on the network. Let's just choose this one. We'll click Next. All right, well, there's our summary of what's going to be exported, all of these printers, and we'll click Next. And all we need to do now is choose a place where we want to export this to. So let's click Browse. Let's just plonk it on our desktop there, and we'll give it a name. I'll just call it Printers. That's pretty original. We'll click Open. Now we'll click Next, and the export will begin. Now it should only take around 10 to 20 seconds on my machine, I'd guess, to do this export, because there's really not a lot that we have here that's needed to be exported. But on a machine with a lot of printers, well, you could probably see it could take a few minutes. Right, well, let's click Finish. It's done. And now let's just go to our desktop, and you can see the file right there. Now let's just assume that this was a file from a different server. Now if we double click on this file, you'll see here it's going to automatically start up the printer migration wizard, and it's going to tell us a list of objects that we will be importing onto this server. We just click Next. Now we could import to this print server or to a different one in our network. This is pretty much the exact mirror opposite, if you like, of the export wizard. We'll just go straight to our print server here. We'll click Next. Now when we import, what do we want to do? We can keep any existing printers in place, or we could choose to overwrite them if we like. Down the bottom here, we could even list them automatically in Active Directory. If they were Active Directory in the first place, we could list all of them or not list any. Well, that's a pretty nifty feature, I must admit, that one. They're certainly worthy of filing that one away in the back of your mind somewhere. So you must admit, if you've been working with printers for a while, that's a pretty nifty feature right there. It certainly makes migrating printers from one print server to another pretty much a no-brainer. So in this video, we've discussed printing, but our emphasis has really been on network printing and all of the cool new improvements that have been made to printing using the print services role. So you should now be able to install the print services role to add and manage printers just through this new console. You should also be able to list printers in Active Directory by simply right-clicking on them and choosing List in Directory. And deploying printers? Well, you'll be a whiz at that, since it's just a matter of a couple of clicks and letting group policy do all the work. Now, printing's one of the most challenging things you can do as an administrator, but it's certainly been simplified in Windows 2008. So go and take a look at it, especially if you happen to be involved in the administration of printers. You're going to love what Windows 2008 has to offer. So we hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'd like to thank you for watching.